Welcome to a very special episode of the Comic Book Strategic Investment Podcast. I'm your host, Nico. This podcast is brought to you by comicbookinvest.com, your one-stop shop for everything comic book related. Today, I am joined by a new friend, and it is an absolute pleasure to introduce you to the promoter, organizer, and founder of the Little Giant Comic Convention, my friend Jason. Will you please introduce yourself to our live audience?
Hey, Nico, how you doing, brother? I'm Jason Brodnick, owner of Little Giant Comics and the Old School Comic Show. And that's it, man. I promote the show. I play with comic books all day. That's about it.
We are really excited. You are our best hope for a convention, a major comic book convention in 2020. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about how you got started in comics?
Yeah, for
how
sure.
that all shook out.
I collected my whole life. I've always been a collector, and I left Philadelphia in '98 to fund my move. I sold my collection. So when I moved to Tennessee, I started going to auctions because I wanted to learn the antique business. And I would just sit there and I'd take notes and try to learn as much as I could about antiques. And then next thing you know, a big group of comics came up, and I started throwing my hand up and got bit by the bug all over again. And I started collecting again. That was probably 2001. Was when I started back up. Anyway, started collecting, amassed a great collection again. And then about 7 years ago, I blew my back out, and I started selling some comics to make ends meet. And right after I hurt my back, I remember my wife drove me to the Everett Arena. There was a yard sale event, and we were going looking for comics, as we always do. And I remember walking into the arena, and it was just like angels were singing. It was like, this is it. It was the perfect venue for comic show. So I pulled the guy aside, the owner or the guy that ran the place, and I gave him my name and number, told him I was interested. He told me that it's really hard to get in because they only do dry floor events like 3 months out of the year. So left my name and number, forgot about it. Like 5 years later, which would have been about 2 years ago, he called me out of the blue. It was in January, and he's like, "Do you still want to do something in the arena?" I'm like, "Let's do it." And he gave me 1 day. I had 1 day to work with. It was in April, so I had 4 months to prepare. And what I wanted to recreate was the only thing I knew. I loved going to. I remember the comic shows when I was like 12, 13, and they were just in the basement of a smoke-filled, hotel basement, wooden tables, just comics as far as you could see. And there were none of that other. It was none of that other stuff. There wasn't a root beer wagon. There wasn't, the brownie lady wasn't there. There wasn't somebody selling beef jerky. There wasn't, you couldn't go and get vinyl siding. There wasn't. You know what I'm saying? You see,
I know exactly what you're saying.
There's swords and all. I mean, fake Legos. Who wants the fake Lego? I get it. Maybe somebody wants a fake Lego, but that's not what I'm about. So what I did was I reached out to anybody that I had either done business with in the past or had a tremendous amount of respect for. And I reached out to Steve Borak, Susan Ciccone, Ted Van Loo from Super World Comics, Will from David Adams, Danielle from Nerdy Girl Comics. I reached out to a lot of my good friends who I bought stuff from over the years, and I said, "Hey, let's do this. Let's put together a magical show with just great people and great books." And magic was born, man. It was an amazing. The first year was incredible. We had like 800 people through the door, and it was fantastic. The vibe in the room was nuts. The books in the room were just crazy. We didn't have any photo shoots. We didn't have a parade lined up. You couldn't join in lightsaber training. It wasn't any of that. It was straight up comics and comic artists. And it resonated within the community really well. We had Sam De La Rosa as an alumni. Jim Steranko was there last year. Al Milgrim, Mike Royer. This year we had David Fitz lined up before the Rona bit us in the ass a little bit. And so David's not coming, but Meredith is still coming. Meredith Finch. I mean, we have Sam De La Rosa's coming back out, Jose Delbo, some of the guys that, like, I remember. Bob Sharon, Al Milgrim, well, still hoping comes. Alex Cormack, one of the newer guys, who's great, did Weed Magic and Rode the Bones. Craig Yo, I don't know if you're familiar with Craig Yo, is an amazing
Absolutely.
artist. But, Craig puts Yo Publishing, does some amazing stuff. And I own a few of his books, so I reached out to him, and he's coming up. Nerdy Girl, like I said, is coming from Florida. CBCS will be set up. CGC will be set up. It's going to be an amazing show. Absolute Comics and Statues comes up from New York. Mike Carbo, Comic Link sets up. Like I said, Dave and Adams. It's some of the James Pyatt. You and I spoke briefly about.
Yeah,
James
can you
Pyatt.
tell these guys, the people that are listening, about Mr. Pyatt?
Mr. Pyatt has been doing this since probably 1970. He brought more pedigree collections to market than anybody else. I think he brought 5 or 6 pedigree collections to market, like the Allentown pedigree, which is the highest known graded copy of Detective 27. It's raw, and it sits in a private collection. But him and Stephen Fischler unearthed it, or they brought it to market, I should say. They were the highest bid, essentially. But the Allentown pedigree, the White Mountain pedigree, there were 3 or 4 other pedigrees I believe he brought to market. But he's as old school as they come. He sends out a paper, like a little paper catalog. It's like 200 pages, and there's no pictures in it. It's just old school, probably with what's that old school computer, the DOS program,
Right. Well, you remember when we used to order comics that way, right?
Yeah.
From the back of the magazines.
That's him. He was advertising in the back of those magazines, and RBCC, the old fanzines he used to advertise in. But to this day, he still sends out a paper catalog to his clients. And he only sets up at my show. It's the only show. He used to only set up at Boston, but now my show is the only one he does. And the stuff he brings, he has an end cap, a 10 by 20 end cap. And being the only show he sets up at once a year, he brings the farm stuff you've never seen. I was fortunate enough to go to his house one time, and the guy has, first of all, he's an amazing person. I could sit and listen to him for hours. Just wonderful, wonderful man. And to see some of his collection is even more special. He has, I don't want to say what he's got, original Boris Vallejo paintings, and
wow,
like he's got a nice. It's cool. It's cool. I mean, he's not bringing that to the show, but the books he brings are incredible. And then we have Matthew DeMacy. It's the only show Matthew does. And Matthew is a mosaic artist that owns Shattered Comics. And he puts out these incredible mosaics that are 4 feet tall. They take hundreds. They take hundreds of hours to make. There he is. And he sets up at the show. He brings his variants out, and he brings 5, 6, 7 of those massive pieces. And it's incredible to see them in person. And Susan Ciccone, and if you know pressing and cleaning, you've probably heard of Susan Ciccone in the Restoration Lab. She's arguably one of the best, if not the best, in the industry in what she does.
A legitimate artist.
She really is. What she can do with a book is absolutely incredible. And just to touch on her resume, she used to be the lead paper conservator at the Louvre in Paris. Which, you talk about credentials. Yeah, so she could do amazing, and she's there to evaluate your books. It's a great show. It's a great show.
Yeah, your reputation for excellence in our community precedes you. We are incredibly grateful for what you've done for comics. There's no question about it.
Thank you.
Well, the word is out. the word is out on the Little Giant Comic Con. So this year,
It's
God
a great
willing,
show, man.
we're going to be convening August 22nd, correct?
Yes, August 22nd at the Everett Arena in Concord, New Hampshire. It's right off the highway. Plenty of free parking, $10 to get in. Old school, cheap. You get in, and it's 20,000. It's a 20,000 square foot room, and it's just comic books and art. And like I said, some amazing artists come, and some of the talent locally. We have Joe Schmalke, Rich Woodall, Alex Cormack, Dylan Andrews with Batlantic Studios, Joe St. Pierre, who worked with Marvel for a long time, Rich Wentworth, Mike Doherty. Some of these guys are local, and the talent in this area is incredible. And everybody I just mentioned, Ron Leary Jr. Oh my goodness, the guy's fantastic. And he'll be there with his paintings. I'm probably missing so many people. Please forgive me, but there's so many great people. Damon Goss is another local artist. Great guy.
Now,
He'll be there.
can you talk to us a little bit about some of the adversity that you've faced as a result of COVID-19? My understanding was the convention was initially scheduled in April.
April 25th. It was scheduled on my 50th birthday. It was going to be a good time.
Happy belated birthday, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you. COVID hit hard. COVID hit. We remained optimistic as long as we possibly could. But following the guidelines of the governor and the CDC and everything that's been laid down, it just wasn't possible to hold the show in April safely. So we pulled the plug, and it's been a challenge financially. It's been a huge pinch financially with the advertising and the time and money spent with web design and primarily advertising. I was fortunate to get all of the plane fare back for the various artists that we had bought tickets for. The hotel's very kind, and they're working with me. The venue is working with me without any any problems whatsoever. The insurance company has switched the binder to the next date. Although I don't know, I have to read the fine print, but I don't think it covers anything with COVID. I have to look at it, and you and I maybe can talk some more about that. But right now the hurt to me is minimal. I do this. I don't make money at the show. I make money at the booth. The show itself is I keep the tables cheap. They're $100 a table. It's $10 a head to get in. I want it to be all about the books, and I want people in the room to have money to spend on the books. So we keep it cheap. We make it affordable for the vendors and the fans.
Can you say that one more time? So you're getting the premier retailers in the country bringing their best books. Sometimes they go nowhere else, and you ask them to pay you $100 a table.
It's 100 to 125. Yeah, the corner.
I thought I misheard you. I wasn't sure. No. I needed to ask that one again.
This whole thing started,
I mean, I've set up at conventions. It's like $1,000.
Yeah.
A table, $1,200 if you don't want to be in the back corner next to the windmill miniature statue guy.
No, we I wanted this to be an experience for everybody, and I wanted it to be all about the comics, and I wanted the vendors to really make money. So I didn't have anything in the room to detract from, there wasn't $200 photo ops. There wasn't things that were taking money out of the room. It was all comics and art. And, I kept it cheap. Artists, look at, we have 40 artists that come. There are 40 artist tables and 84 vendor tables. And, a lot of the artists, they don't make a ton of money. So, for them to come out and get a room and buy a table, it's a lot of money. So I wanted to make it as feasible and as feasible as possible for these guys to come out. So I kept it cheap. The show, like I said, I don't make a lot of money at the show. Sometimes the first year I lost money, Last year I broke even. This year I hope to make money. But we make money on the booth. You know, I keep the show cheap for I want the fans to come. I want it just to be we go all out. We literally roll out the red carpet. There's 75 feet of red carpet for a private VIP entrance. Red velvet ropes. You know, we go all out. The VIPs get in an hour early and they get a special treat. They get a VIP swag bag loaded. We have Diamond International Galleries is one of our sponsors this year.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're we have a 16-page program. They're going to be in the program, and they're going to do something special for our VIPs. And it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And
I'm
last
thinking
year,
about all the conventions I pay $1,000 for a booth for, and I've never once had anybody give anybody a program, but they will sell you a $200 photo of a C-list celebrity who hasn't been on a television show on the Lifetime channel this decade. And for
exactly.
some reason, people pay the $200 for that.
I don't get that. Now, listen, I go to every convention that I can possibly go to. I love everything about it. I own several of the root beer mugs. You know, I get it. It's kind of cool. You know, I don't mind meeting these guys, but for me, I go to these shows for comic books.
Yeah.
I don't go for anything else. And for me, that other stuff just kind of gets in the way. You know, I don't have anything against it. People ask me, what do you got against cosplay? I have nothing against cosplay. Some of my dear friends, Jamie Dolan, Matches Malone, Donnie Francis, these guys do some incredible things for the comic book community. And the work that they put into their costumes and the things that they do, the positive things they do, it's fantastic. But for me as a comic collector, I have no interest in it. So this show,
As the young kids say, same.
you know, sorry, not sorry, or whatever.
All right.
Hey,
I think they say that too. Yeah.
This show is about comic books. I had a guy. This guy calls me every year, the fake Lego guy. I listen. I got no time for fake Legos in my life. So and hey, God bless him. I hope he makes a lot of money at the flea market because he's not setting up at my show. And you know, it's resonated well. We are over 70 vendors and artists on a wait, which was sold out every year, and we're 70 plus people on a wait. That's pretty amazing going into the third year. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's
so
pretty cool.
We talked a little bit about our love for comics briefly before the podcast. And you were kind enough to bring some things that I didn't give you much notice, like 25 minutes. Hey, will you grab some stuff that's cool? Could you share that
Sure.
with the people that tuned in who love comics the same way that we do?
Yeah, I like oddball stuff. I like unique stuff, rare stuff. You know, and I mean, an XMen 1 is cool, but doesn't do anything for me really. But like this book, the only thing different is the Laird is in white. This is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #3. It's called the Laird photo variant. And this was brought to New York Comic Con by Kevin and Peter in 1985. There were only 500 with the white Laird part. And I was fortunate enough to get this double signed. I didn't personally get it when I acquired the book. It was this way, but it's just to only be 500 copies and double signed is wicked cool.
Absolutely.
So I brought that. I just think it's kind of neat.
Yeah, we got a member of the Flipside who's a turtle fanatic. Right now,
he'll love this book.
Yeah, right now he's salivating. I promise.
It's a rare book. It's a really rare book. I brought this, and this is special to me. I love Silver Surfer, Galactus, Kirby, and Stan together is magic. And this is the epitome of that. This reprints Fantastic Four 48, 49, and 50, the Silver Surfer Galactus story. And the neat thing about this, there were only 742 copies made. And there's a COA with Jack and Stan on it inside. And there's only, like I said, 742 were made. It just makes it kind of neat. I love that neat stuff.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that was the pinnacle of the Silver Age? I mean, was that really the peak? It may be my favorite
It
story
has
from
to,
the Silver Age.
that they were at their peak, Stan and Jack. From 60 to 70, that decade was just magic. And that story, the FF from, say, maybe like, oh, you could go back to one, but really like 25 to, man, all the way up through probably the 70s, because they messed with Galactus a bunch of times in there. And Ronan came in, and Adam Warlock came in issue 67. The Thing battle, oh yeah, that's yeah.
When I was a little kid, those were
You
the
see, I'm
books that
getting goosebumps talking
yeah.
about it.
Well, because when we were children, I assume you were very much the same as myself. I couldn't even dream of having books like that. It was so just like I don't even know. It was like a mythology that I appreciated, but I never thought that I'd hold anything like that in my hands.
Yeah, I tell you a cool story. I was 12, yes, 12 years old, and I had been collecting probably a year. First book I had was ROM number 17, ROM 18, excuse me, which I found in an alley on the way home from school on a playground. ROM 18, and I read it, and I fell in love with it, and I rushed to the nearest store I could find, which was Comic Universe in Folsom, Pennsylvania. And my father took me there, and I bought ROM number 17, which was the first part of the story. And I fell in love with the X-Men. That was an X-Men crossover. Great story. I also fell in love with ROM, as you can see with the wall behind me. I'm a ROM guy. But the X-Men were my thing. I love the X-Men. I could relate to them because I wasn't the most popular kid in school, and it was just the X-Men were relatable. I had moved to Philadelphia from Tennessee, so I was the new kid with the twang of an accent. And the X-Men were the outcast, and it was relatable to read that. So, long story short, one Christmas, I get a T-shirt box or a shirt box, and I'm thinking it's another shirt or it's a sweater, something, socks, pack of socks maybe. And I open it up, and it was X-Men 1 through 10 and 94 through like 105 maybe. There was like 15, 20 books in the box.
Wow.
And I was blown away. My father paid 100, the sticker was still on it, paid $125 for the X-Men. X-Men number 1. Must have been 1983. And
wow.
Yeah. So I mean, I was like, what? Crazy. So I had a really nice collection as a kid, and I parted with it when I left Philadelphia in 1998. Had to get out of Philly. We can go on and on, but it was time for me to leave Philly.
I understand.
Yeah.
Youth gone wild myself.
Wasn't good. Wasn't good. I remember I was dating this girl named Dawn DeMarco, who she since passed away a long time ago. Was a good girl. Her father was named Stevie DeMarco. Now Stevie was one of the founding members of the Warlock motorcycle gang.
Oh boy.
And he also ran deep with the mob. Right? That's not my style. I'm not trying to, do any of that stuff, but I knew a lot of people in it and all that. So one of the contributing factors to me leaving was Stevie called me up, and he says, "Hey, come over to my house in Southwest, the one on top of the tattoo parlor." I'm like, all right. So I go over there. He looks behind me as I go in, shuts the door, locks it. I can say this because Stevie's no longer with us. Stevie passed away. So I have no problems telling you this story. So Stevie brings me inside and he hands me a revolver and he says, "Keep this. The numbers are rubbed off." I'm like, "Okay." He's walking me around the house. He's like, "You need anything? I'm going away for 6 months."
Oh,
I was like, because I used to buy stuff from him to do stuff with, like back in the day, and
t-shirts.
t-shirts and stuff.
Put clothes
Um,
on people who don't have t-shirts. I gotcha.
yeah, okay. And he was just like, "I need you to stay in my house for 6 months and watch the house while I go to jail." And I'm like, I didn't want to say no, being in his house at the time, but I'm just like, "All right, no problem." And I went home. I called Dawn, and I'm like, "Hey, uh, everything. Here's the gun. Here's everything Stevie gave me. I'm good." I was gonna think about leaving anyway. It's time to go. Yeah, that's not me. And there were other contributing factors, but my mother was in Tennessee, my brother was in Tennessee, so I went to be with the rest of my family. Met my wife, fell in love.
Oh,
Yeah, and the rest is kind of history.
yeah. What a good trade.
My wife's awesome. She really supports the hobby too. Supports me in the hobby.
Yeah,
So
no,
I'm very
you'd
blessed.
mentioned she takes care of eBay for you.
She does. Yeah, my back's still kind of messed up. I get like 10 minutes on my feet, and luckily I'm sitting, so it's kind of cool. But 10 minutes on my feet, my legs go numb. So it's still kind of an issue, and she helps me so much. Um, my knowledge is there, but she does a lot of the physical part. As humbling as that is, she she's the yin to my yang. Yeah, she does the eBay with me at her side. I'll do the grading and the pricing, but she'll do the listing.
You brought some more books with us.
Yeah,
I
I
rudely interrupted you to pick your brain about that 48 to 50 run,
oh
which is
yeah,
my personal favorite, and I feel like it should be everyone else's too.
it's
Uh,
it's an iconic story. It really is, and definitely defines the Silver Age in a lot of ways. So my taste, as I mentioned, are all across the board. I love westerns. You and I talked about some of the westerns, the romance books, Matt Baker, and some of the romance artists, Bob Powell. The golden ages. There's so many things I love, but I also love variants. And one of the ones I brought was this bad boy.
oh
It's a
my.
tough one to get. I was fortunate enough to get the entire Venom variant run from this year with the Hulk. I think it's 612, maybe. Um, I forget what number, but
Can
there
you
was
kind of tell those who are not informed about these Venomized covers and why this particular issue of Amazing Spider-Man is so coveted?
this was the first year they did the Venom variants. It was 2012 was the first time they did the Venom variants. This is Joe Quinones 1 in 50. And back then, not a lot of people, I should say, were ordering 50 copies of a title that was slowing down. Spider-Man's always hot, and even your regular local comic store is going to order 20 or 30. But to order 50 to get this, not a lot of people were doing it. So it was a rare book to get. And it's, like I said, the 1 in 50 Joe Quinones cover from 2012. And it's known as the Mary Jane Venom. But in 2012, I think they made 14 or 15 of these. Not Spider-Man, but there was, like I said, the Incredible Hulk, the Iron Man came out with one. And they went up doing another round of Venom variants a couple years later.
Yeah,
And
which are not that expensive. But
no,
that first run, those books
first run's
and that
nuts.
sucker right there is without a question the flagship
Yeah,
variant. I've never owned one. Uh, I
it's a
don't know that
tough
I've ever
book.
seen one in person, to be
And I like
honest.
my books raw. I don't grade a lot of books. The people I sell to prefer them raw, and I'm okay with leaving a little bit of money on the table. So I don't rush out and grade everything. I like to smell the books. I like to read them. It sounds weird, and I know you can relate, but the smelling, I
I'm
smell the
trying
books,
to
man. I'm a
one day
sniffer.
figure out how to tell the difference between a Mile High book and any other comic. I know there are people out there that can do that.
You know, I tested myself on that. Excuse me. Matthew DeMacy, who's a great friend of mine with Shattered Comics, he and I go comic hunting a lot, and you know, oftentimes we'll just get in the car together and go out riding and hunting. And he says to me one time, he goes, "Do you want to smell? Do you want to see if we can smell the cedar from the closet in the Mile High collection?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, I have a Mile High pedigree." I went, "And?" He said, "Let's crack it and smell it." I said, "Let's do it." So he came over and we cracked it. And maybe it was my imagination, but I swear I could smell a cedar closet in that book. Maybe it was just me wanting to smell it real bad. But what we didn't realize at the time, this was years ago, what we didn't realize at the time was we lost the pedigree by cracking it. So, I mean, he's got the label in the book, and he's not going to sell it. But we cracked the Mile High pedigree to see if we could smell the cedar.
That's
And
a beautiful story.
I swear I could smell it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
Shit, I'm trying to learn the difference between attics and basements.
The other book I brought is dear to me because I was fortunate enough in 2015 to meet Stan. And this was I bought this book at a flea market. I paid $150 for it, and I got it signed by Todd and Stan. But I waited in line to meet Stan. It wasn't like it's not a long drawn out story because we didn't converse a lot. But for me, I wish I brought that picture with me to show you. The grin on my face was just like.
Right.
And my wife was with me, and she reached over and she's like, I touched him. And you know, we just said hello. He said hello back, and I brought the two books, and you know, shook his hand. I thanked him for everything, and they were ushering us through like the soup Nazi. So there wasn't a lot of time to hang out, but I did get to go to the Stanley VIP event. It was that Friday night at the show, and that was magical because he went up, he stopped the event, the middle of the event, and he called his wife, and he got to say goodnight to his wife. And just to hear that exchange was pretty cool. But some of the stories he told, he was singing songs. Ken Bald came out, the Golden Age artist, and Stan actually sang "Happy Birthday" to him, which was great. It's just kind of cool to hear him tell those stories. And then we went around, and got everything signed. It's funny, when he went to sign the Spider-Man, he had the Sharpie, and the cap was on the Sharpie. And he reaches down to sign it, and I'm like, whoa, 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 Stan. Can you take that cap off, brother? But look, this is I don't know if you could see.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, and we were both so happy.
Oh, you guys look filled with joy.
Yeah, it was a cool time, and that's the book I'm holding right there. And the DD I don't have anymore, but I kept yeah, there's my grin. I was a happy camper that day.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So for those who can't tell, can you hold the book up a bit again and tell them exactly what it is? That's the Amazing Spider-Man 300 Chromium.
It is a Spider-Man. It's known as the Spider-Man 300 Chromium Edition. It's if you're looking it up, it's the Marvel Collectible Classic Spider-Man #1, and this came out in 1998. It was a reprint of Spidey 300 with a chromium cover, chromium back. It's a beautiful book, but it's really hard to get in 9.8 because of the chromium. You know, they're next to impossible.
Next to impossible. Yeah, I don't even know how you did it and survived 2 signatures.
2 signatures. Yeah. So that's near and dear to me. That's a keeper for sure. Along with my I have a ROM. I do have a ROM up there. I don't know if you could see that up on the wall. It's kind of hard, but There's a ROM 18 signed by Frank Miller. And I'll tell you a great story about that. ROM 18 was the first book I ever had. But I was fortunate enough to meet Frank Miller on several occasions. And one time was at New York Comic Con. We were with it was Matthew DeMacy and myself, and Matthew's brother-in-law Billy. And we went up to Stan. Matt had created a beautiful mosaic, Daredevil 158. He did a homage mosaic to that, and we brought it up to show Frank. And he also did a piece to give to Frank, which was it was a Batman Superman Dark Knight homage to the Dark Knight cover. So he did a mosaic to give to Frank, and I was over in the corner talking to Frank's manager, Celine, who's just a wonderful woman. And we arranged to bring the piece to Frank's house. So after New York Comic Con, I think it was January or February, Matt and I drove to New York with the piece, and we got to spend the day with Frank Miller in his house, in his studio, and it was just the most incredible thing. It's funny, when I first met him, he comes out, I shook his hand, and I'm like, Mr. Miller, it's kind of cool. And it was nuts just being in Frank Miller's house. It was absolutely crazy. But I said to him, I have to tell you, I'm a huge Rom fan, and Rom was the first comic I ever had. It was your cover, and it just drew me to the book, and it was fantastic. I love your artwork. And he goes, Rom, what do you like about Rom? And I had to explain, my love for Rom. And he turns to Celine, and he goes, well, I guess I owe you $5. And she starts laughing, and I said, what? She goes, he bet me $5 there wouldn't be another Rom fan, that he wouldn't bump into another Rom fan. And I said, well, here I am. And I said, as a matter of fact, and I reach in my back pocket, and I'm like, boom! And I pull out a Rom blank. I'll see if I can get that. I had it graded, so it's in my Rom collection in my dining room in the back of the box. But he did a drawing of Rom for me, and he said, this is the last time I'm drawing Rom. I said, okay.
Wow.
So he drew Rom's head being ripped off by Magnus the Robot Fighter. And there's like bolts and nuts and bolts flying all over the place, and it says squee. And allegedly that's the last time he's going to draw Rom.
Robert Fordham, I think you answered inadvertently his question before you knew he asked it. What's the rarest ROM in your collection?
Yeah, it would be
that might be the rarest ROM in existence.
It would be that one. There's a ton behind me. These guys behind me are amazing. There's a David Finch up there. The Miller's not up there. There's an Al Milgrim up there. There's some cool books up there. But the Frank Miller, unfortunately, is in the house, so I don't have it to show you right now.
Yeah, I always pull the last issue, the yellow cover. It's what, 75?
Yeah.
When I'm looking through long boxes, that's one of my, people aren't smart enough to buy it, but I sure as hell am, books.
So my awesome wife must be watching this in the house.
She's very much a saint and joined us in the live chat.
So this is what Frank did for me. And he says, Rom meets Magnus. And he's like, this, I'm all done.
I love it.
It's all right. I love it too. I absolutely love it. So that's what Frank did for me. And it's cool. So that's probably the rarest ROM in my collection. And the robot behind me, the original ROM robot.
You've had the opportunity.
Oh, I lost you.
You've had the opportunity to meet some real legends in our industry.
I have. I've been blessed, man.
I pray to God that my internet isn't giving out. Yeah. Can you talk to us about some of the creators that have really touched your heart?
Jim Steranko comes to
Whether
mind.
from an in-person meeting or the work that they've done.
Yeah, there's so many. Jim Steranko comes to mind. I've always been a fan of his work. But there's one other guy I wanted to mention too, Chris Campagna. He has created a book based on life experiences, and it's called The Adventures of Parker Reef, and it's a powerful book. I won't go into many details about the book, but if you get a chance, Adventures of Parker Reef by Chris Campagna, that's a fantastic read, and it really touched touched my heart. So I'd recommend that. He lost his wife and daughter, excuse me, his wife and son, um, and it's a book about him trying to find his way back. So it's really powerful. But the other person, like I said, there are many, but Jim Steranko really stands out. He is everything you might think he is and more. He's probably the most interesting man in the world, without question. We had the pleasure of doing a private private dinner with Steranko before the show last year, and it was capped at 40 people to keep the intimacy. We had a private hotel ballroom, and it was incredible. A 5-star service, private chef. It was a wonderful, wonderful evening. And Jim was late, so few people left. But the ones that stayed, there were probably 30 people that stayed. Jim comes in at 11 o'clock at night like a rock star. He walks into the room and just commands the room. Um, I can't even describe. I'm getting goosebumps telling you. Literally, I'm getting goosebumps telling you. He walks into the room, and he's a tiny little guy, but he's big in stature, and his hair is perfect, and he's got that turtleneck everywhere he goes. But man, that's Jim. And he proceeded to light up the crowd like I've never seen. He sat down and actually no, he didn't sit down at first. He walked around the room and thanked everybody for taking the time to wait for him. And then we had a toast, and he made sure to go up to every single person in the room and personally thank them, which I think was amazing. And he sat down, my wife and I on either side, and he proceeded to tell stories, and the infamous tale of when he smacked the crap out of Bob Kane. Um, he told that story, and to hear it in person is amazing. I'm sure you've heard the tale, but to hear him tell it is really special. And Jim, we sat down after that, um, and you would think that maybe it's an act. Is he really that way? And he really is. He really is like a rock star. We had my wife and I got to sit with him for a few hours, just her, I, and him, and it was surreal. Just a special guy, and he reaches out to me on my birthday, holidays, and it's amazing. He's just a good-hearted guy. Al Milgrim is another one. I had the fortune of spending 7 hours at Al's house. I went there, and I went there to meet him with Matthew, and we got to talking. He invited us in, and 7 hours of hearing tales of the Marvel bullpen, from back in the day with Al Milgrim. It's like, what? Al Milgrim, Rom. He did Rom 2. It was the cover of Rom 2, and oh, so many more. Al Milgrim is such a prolific artist. He's such a nice guy. And Mike Royer is another one. Legend. Worked on so much of the 70s stuff with Kirby. Um, and he's just such a nice guy. I can't. John Byrne is another. I go on and on. I met
I
John Byrne in New York, and man, Byrne was. It's funny. When I met John Byrne, I said, I got to tell you, the Byrne X-Men run, my favorite. He goes, the Byrne X-Men run. I ought to piss on your grave. Like, what? He goes, don't even talk to me about the burn XMen run. I was like, all right, can we get a selfie? He said, sure. Pop
That
to the
guy's
selfie.
salty.
He really is. God bless him. I wanted to invite the other gentleman from the Flipside podcast as my internet
Is dying.
We lovingly refer to Nico as the
here
hour
in
man.
the wild, wonderful state of West Virginia. It makes you think that I live in a third world country. So I'm going to let them introduce
All
themselves.
right.
I wanted to
What's up,
Thanks,
Bye,
bro?
Nico.
Fuck.
invite
My man, Ben.
What's going on, brother?
What's up, brother?
How you been?
Man, I'm good. I'm good. How you doing?
Wild, wonderful state of West Virginia. It makes you think that I live in a third world country. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
All right.
Oh wow.
There we go. I think we're good.
All right.
Maybe not. We have an echo coming from somewhere. Who's got their speakers on?
How you been?
Not I.
Ben.
It's Ben. Ben's speakers are on.
That's all right. He'll figure it out.
Yeah.
That was some technical difficulty of the
We're experiencing
21st
technical
century.
difficulty.
The joys of a
Let's see if
Zoom,
Ben's working now. Ben, you good?
Yeah, man, that was me, obviously.
happens to the best of us.
Yeah. Jason, what's good, brother?
Yeah.
What's up, brother? Good to see you, Ben.
And you, man. I'm fucking looking forward to August, huh?
Oh, me too. Me too.
Yeah. You probably are more than me, but I'm right behind you.
Well, I tell you, man, getting we canceled the first one, obviously, and it was frightening. It was painful, but I gotta tell you, everybody that I've worked with, including the airlines, have been fantastic. We've had no issues, other than my time and the money on advertising. It's been somewhat painless.
Well, and everything I've heard, I mean, your show is like growing as like an urban legend kind of on, you do a great job on Instagram and everybody just talks about it.
Awesome.
It's like that show is the show that you need to be going to.
Well, we are we're sold out, and we are now over 70 people, 70 vendors and artists on a waiting list to get in. So it's definitely resonating with some people, and I'm glad to see that. I'm happy to hear you say that. Thank you very much.
Oh, you've earned it, man.
To get it there, man. We're able to curate it, and I was telling Nico earlier, we were fortunate, when I got the opportunity to get the venue, which came out of left field. That was cool. But when I got the opportunity to jump in there, first thing I did was reach out to the people who I had either done business with or, just had great respect for. And what I was trying to do was put the vibe in the room. I wanted just comics and art, but I also wanted the right vibe in the room. I didn't want jerks in there. And, we had one guy that was on the waiting list last year who made it on. We had a last-minute cancellation. He made it in, came up from Connecticut, 3 hours away, and he comes up with an attitude. I'm at the Steranko dinner, and the prick calls me. My brother calls me. He's like, this guy's raising hell. He said he deserves a table at the front. So put him on the phone. Gets on the phone. I said, what are you talking about? Oh, I deserve to be at the front. I said, dude, you got a 10 by 10. You can make it work.
For
10 minutes later.
$100.
For $100.
Yeah. I've been to way worse shows and paid a lot more money to do set up that.
So we just politely asked him to leave, and we weren't trying to hear that negative attitude.
Are you sure it wasn't the Lego guy?
It wasn't. No, I won't let that guy anywhere near the venue. He tries every year to get in. He tries every year to get in. Nope, not happening.
Like he's showing up with a mustache and shit.
He's in disguise.
Yeah.
Sell him out of a briefcase.
Right. We the people that supported us the first year was, when I said I was able to reach out and kind of curate the show from the ground up, and those people have right of first refusal moving forward. So for a spot to open up, it's tough. We were able to create some more spaces this year by shrinking the artist tables down a little bit, because I didn't think an artist needed a full 10x10. It's kind of a waste. It's too deep for them.
Yeah.
So, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
for both sides, right? That's a lot for them to manage as
Yeah.
well.
It was a lot of space. So by doing that, I was able to do 40 artists this year and 84 10x10 vendors. So I shrunk the artist spaces down a little bit, and I kept the vendor spaces 10x10, nice and big, $100, and come in and make money. Last year, we had to get the ATM machine company out 4 times by noon just to come fill all the machines. 4 times. 4.
I keep telling everybody. I mean, you can ask them. Every time this show comes up, I just scream. It's the Next Baltimore, and it's not in a follow suit kind of way, because it's obviously a different vibe. What you and your wife bring to the table is obviously unique, and I love it.
Thank you.
I mean, honestly, the first show, the first year, I bought comics from your daughter for my daughter. I remember, because she had a little setup at the end.
Yeah.
I get to the PCH afterwards, I guess. So,
yeah, she'll bring you in, man.
Gotta start them young to be good salesmen.
She knew, she knew too. She was like, "Huh."
Well, and the most important thing I think from watching earlier is the fact that as comic fans, we've kind of lost the comic convention, and by saying no, this is about comics and comic creators and comic fans. It's not about foam swords and almonds and dragon sculptures. Those are all great, and I loved how you said that. You were like, those are all great and they have their place, but this is about comics.
Yeah, totally.
And that's so important, especially. And then when you started talking about how you grew up a fan of the XMen, and you're talking about ROM and how you grew up in that same, type of era that kind of we all grew up in with comics, that kind of made me go, okay, I know why he's putting on a show for comic, because he's a real comic guy. And there's not very many of those people left.
What I found out as a promoter, excuse me, is I found out why they diversify the show and why they're so quick to bring in all that other stuff. It's hard, man. It's hard. And, I'm fortunate that my booth, we set up a booth at the show, the Little Giant Comics booth. It's 50, 60, sometimes 70 feet long. And, we only set up at 2 shows a year. So we bring the fun. We bring, I'm buying all year long for this show. So the stuff that it's 70 feet of wall, whatever. So we make our money at the booth. This show was never designed to put money in my pocket. Now, I hope this year, we make some money. We got some sponsors. We got some other things going on. Hopefully we make some money as, from the show as a separate entity. But my money's at the booth, and I'm okay with that. This show was built on passion, and as a promoter, I'm not going to say, oh, shit, COVID's taking money out of my pocket. I got to bring the cosplay parade. I need the root beer wagon. I want beef jerky. No.
You think he's kidding? Those are the competing conventions we have up here.
And I'm not doing it. I can't. No, there's enough of that. And it's cool. Like I said, you said it too. That stuff's great, man.
It's fantastic for not a comic show.
But you end up paying $40 to get in and buy root beer.
$40.
Right. And if I want to go see the Batmobile and buy a root beer, I know where to go, and I do, and it's fantastic. But I promise you, I don't get books. You guys know the last show. The first thing I did was trade with one of the dealers, Joe. I came home with Beware 10, Black Cat 50, and Chamber 19. And that was
not a bad haul, man.
Yeah, well, that was just the beginning of the show.
That's what we got to make a deal at the beginning of the show for those books, because they'll be gone in about 45 minutes.
But it's so deep. Jason, brother, you brought up James Pyatt earlier.
Pyatt brings some incredible stuff.
His dollar box.
He was one of the first persons I bought a book for online. I just remember.
Is that right?
Yeah. I remember hunting him, found it.
Stuff. And just there's a lot of guys. Absolute Comics and Statues. I mentioned him earlier. He's coming up from New York. Full Family Comics. Gus. I don't know if you guys.
What a great. I was gonna say guy, but what a great team. Like what a great shop, family, everything.
Yeah, they're good people. Jam Comics is coming out in New York. There's a guy named John runs that. He's a super nice guy. He sets up in New York every year, and he brings great stuff. He's a Golden Age specialty, so you'll see a lot of the Golden Age romance and the high-end Golden Age stuff.
That's what I hear is like if you're a Golden Age person, it used to be Baltimore, and it still is. Baltimore is where you go on the East Coast for Golden Age, but now I'm hearing yours, and I'm like, oh, I see the vendors going, and I see the people you're promoting. I'm like, I got to get there.
It's a fun show, and it's quick. It's a one-day show, so there's a frenzy in there. There's a lot of books in that room.
There's no meandering till day 3.
But we have a penalty box set aside for us, right?
We do have a penalty box. You guys, you guys have, it's not a penalty box. You guys, there's a balcony.
That's what I meant.
There's a balcony that overlooks the whole arena. And you guys will have that whole balcony.
I'm telling you, we're a fucking crew.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What this is going to sound crazy, but what is the pricing like at that show? I mean, is it a place to catch deals? Are you paying?
Yeah. I have one guy. There is a lot of this. It's funny you say that because it's not just high end stuff. I tell all the people that it's not a place to dump your flea market fodder. So what I don't want to see is boxes of junk. I don't want to see it. Cheap stuff is fine, but I don't want to see dirty, nasty boxes of crap that you're just trying to dump. This isn't the show for it. Now there are cheap books. James Pyatt brings a $1 section. Dude, you're
probably a nicer $1 section you'll receive.
XMen, the Days of Future Past run's going to be in there. The whole Burn XMen runs, and it's $1 boxes, dude.
Eternals run, Power Girl run, 1 to 27. Eternals 1 to 10. I just walked out.
Things that he wants nothing to do with. He throws them in the $1 box. Call it a day. Nuts. My lawyer is a great guy, and he's a huge collector. And what he does is he culls through his collection as he buys collections. He takes everything he wants to keep, which is anything high-end, anything 9.4 above he keeps. Doesn't matter if it's, if it's not a 9.4 FF52, he probably doesn't want it. Weird, but that's him. So he throws everything else in these boxes. And once or twice a year, he'll call me up. Where should I take these boxes? So he sets up the show, and he puts everything out for $0.25.
Oh, God.
So the stuff you're going to find in those boxes is, I found a giant size X-Men 1. And I said to him, Mike, what are you doing, man? And he goes, I know, but it's got a rip on the cover. It's a $0.25, dude. It's like, what? But, for him as a collector, if it doesn't meet his grading criteria, he tosses it in a box and it makes its way to the show for $0.25. So yeah, you're gonna find some deals in there for sure.
Welcome to New England.
You're not killing the dealers to get in the door. I mean, you're not charging them $1,000.
No, we got room rates set up at the Holiday Inn and the Best Western.
Yeah,
so we try to keep it cheap.
That's great that you're bringing that up because a question asked in the chat was, in anticipation for people jonesing for a con, what changes are you making for this year's show? Extended hours, etc.
We don't have extended hours. The hours are 10 to 5, with 9 o'clock being the VIP entrance. So the VIPs are going to get in an hour earlier. What we did do was we rented 16 individual hand washing and sanitizing stations. So we're going to have a wall of hand washing stations outside, no matter where we are in this event. I want people to wash their hands as coming in. And there's going to be sanitizer stations throughout the venue. And once the line disperses, all the hand washing stations are going to be moved inside. And we're going to put them all throughout the arena. They're self-contained. And they also come equipped with sanitizer. If masks are the way to go, then we're going to do masks. We're going to do whatever the CDC tells us. We're going to adhere to the guidelines and cross our fingers and hope for the best.
And that's how we get conventions back, is by doing it the smart way. I was so glad to hear. I knew you had it covered, but it's really nice to have it out there, because now we have it on clip too, that we can just remind people, like,
we're going to take all precautions, man. And I wish there was a way. We're going to look into it, but I don't know if we can test temperatures. I did reach out to the Leahy Clinic and see if they can bring a representative up and maybe explore that possibility. But again, I don't know where we're going to be August 22nd. I wish I had the crystal ball. This whole thing, 2020 has just been nuts, man. When this thing first hit in January, February is when it really started to, like, whoa, this is real, and it's, my mother-in-law got it, and, she was in quarantine. She was rough for a little while. So it hit home. And it's, it's definitely hurting some people. But when it first hit, I was so optimistic about the show. I held out hope that we were still going to do something in April. Like, maybe this is just going to pass. Who knew? And, here we are. And we're still waiting. We're still watching. And rest assured, we're going to do the right thing. We're going to be safe. And if we can't be safe, we won't have the show.
Can you explain you talked a little bit about the ROM fascination, and I love the story about issue 17 and 18, because I'm right there with you. Those are some of the early issues I remember as a kid. I remember the Mystique and the Rogue run. I think that was like an early appearance of Rogue in comics, if I'm not mistaken. That was like her 4th or 5th appearance in comics, something like that. I remember that those 2 issues being a real big deal. Those 2 issues at a time were worth some money.
They were worth a good penny for a little while.
Yeah.
They're desirable still.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So behind you have a bunch of sketch covers. And they're all ROM sketch covers. What's the deal with all that?
I try to get a ROM sketch cover anytime I go to a show.
I love it.
It's kind of my way of remembering the show. So that's what all this stuff is.
That's a good idea. I like it.
Yeah.
I think that original art, especially when it comes to sketches, is so underrated. And I love new ideas. I remember the first time I ever saw somebody carrying around like a hardback drawing book where they would just get tons of different sketches and leave them in there. I thought that was such a great idea.
I love that idea.
I mean, there's a lot of people doing really cool things with sketches from creators out there. And one of the things that I've noticed that I really liked was the sketch covers that are the black sketch covers.
Yes.
I love that.
They have pink and there's a green one now for the Hulk, I think.
Yeah.
The purple one it was, not pink, purple for the Joker. Maybe pink for Harley.
So do you have like a stack of those ROM covers just waiting?
I do. I do. I got about 15 of them, yeah, just waiting.
Who's your favorite artist not your favorite artist, but who has given you your favorite piece? What is the artist that has given you your favorite sketch?
Probably David Finch. That piece. Is that out here? Oh yeah. Let's see if we can. Let me just pull it off the wall.
Even better.
We'll do it that way. Yeah, this piece, and this is a cool story too. This was a ROM blank.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And he nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. He said it was the first time he ever drew ROM. Did a good job.
That is
but
gorgeous.
This one, I went to Terrificon specifically to see David Finch. And I remember waiting in line, and it was kind of a cluster. The table was missing and the line was wrong. There were a lot of problems, as were typical, at some shows. And there were a few problems with his particular table. So I don't know why, but he never came out. And I waited there like 3 hours and he never came. And I had to leave. So I tried to talk to his rep. I think it was Spencer at the time. And Spencer was having a bad morning, and he wasn't about to. He wasn't having it. Had a rough day. It's okay. So I go home, and I had David's contact through a mutual friend. So I reached out to David, and I just said, "Hey, I missed you today. Um, Love to get a ROM sketch. Had waited for a couple hours and missed you." So I didn't think he was going to call me, and out of the blue, guy calls me. And I said, "This is Jason. May I help you?" "Hey, Jason, it's David Finch." "Who?" I said, "It's David Finch." I was like, "No shit." So the fact that he took the time to call me, I thought was wicked cool. And he apologized for the experience. We talked for probably an hour. Just a really nice guy. And I sent him the blank, and he did the sketch for me. And just, I made a friend. He's just a super nice guy. And his wife.
That's one of those stories that usually when you hear it, it goes the opposite way. Like it turns into a nightmare, right? And I agree with you. Hearing good stories about, artists like that, it just makes it even better.
Yeah, he was so super nice, man, and apologetic for the experience. And like I said, it was I made a friend, and I look for him every time I go to a show, and he's just a good guy. Yeah,
it's good to hear about the guys that are doing good stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, Joe St. Pierre has done a few pieces for me. Chris Campagna did the Venom and Rom, the centerpiece back there, which is awesome. So these guys I'm fortunate. I have a lot of cool pieces. But the fence is probably it's my screensaver on my phone.
I don't blame you. That is just magnificent. I mean,
it's a nice piece for sure.
Yeah. So I know I have staticky feedback. I'm going to shift into something unless it was right in the beginning of the interview, I missed it. But back the comeback.
Back the comeback. Absolutely.
All right, here we go.
So Back the Comeback is an initiative put out by a friend of mine, Josh Jeppy, and Diamond Distributing. People have mixed feelings about Diamond. I love them. I think they did what they felt was in the best interest of the industry. A lot of people will debate that decision for a long time, but I think they did what was in the best interest, and now they're trying to help as much as they can with backing the comeback. And I really support that. The LCSs, the local comic stores, are, that's like our backbone, man. For the comic industry. So I spent my time, and I encourage everybody to go to as many local stores as you can. Drop $10, drop $20, buy a gift card for somebody. And I went to as many as I could. I try to give them shout outs. I'll keep doing it. And I encourage everybody to. And this movement, back the comeback, it's Diamond's way of trying to help. They cut the supply off, and like I said, the attempt was to do the right thing, and they actually saved a lot of comic stores, in my opinion, because they didn't give them invoices during a time when they didn't have a way to sell. It could be looked at different ways, but
I think the brick and mortars needed it to shut down. I agree with you. I think it was too much pressure. They wouldn't have been able to move it.
A lot of the brick and mortars that I go to are not accustomed to online sales. So if Diamond would have kept dumping product towards them, they would not have made the transition, and they would have been stuck with $1,000 bills every week. So, I think for a lot of people, it was beneficial, possibly for the stores that are acclimated to online sales, maybe it hurt them by not having the product when they could have moved it online. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But again, who knew? I think their intentions were just, and now they're trying their best to give back and to promote the stores, and I'll support the hell out of them.
It was good to see. For those who haven't seen it, the Little Giant Instagram feed yesterday, right? I lose time right now. I think it was yesterday. It was just a stream of Jason hitting shops and giving shout outs like under their
Wednesday.
signs.
That was New Comic Day.
Oh, Jesus. All right. Well, what? I've been in the basement for like fucking 6 years. What do I know? Either way, it was nice to see that, and it was nice to not see too many of the shops that I go to down here yet. I was like, all right, he hasn't hit him yet.
Yeah, I try to get around a little bit, and again, to support these stores, I think is important. And these guys support me. They put flyers in the stores, and they believe in the show, and I'll do what I can to help them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's all we can do is try and help the good shops that treat us well.
The community's really been hit hard by this pandemic, and I'm glad to see a lot of artists have transitioned to virtual cons, kind of, and a lot of the artists are still doing really well with commissions. I think that's great. Some probably didn't make the transition so well, and then there's others that have really been affected negatively by it. So I think if we pull together as a community and hopefully the show happens, I really hope it does for a lot of reasons. Therapeutic, if you will. You get to dig through some boxes.
Yeah,
it's kind of like medicine.
Paul, everybody's saying you just had to decide to come on to try and hustle the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle variant from Jason.
But to talk offline.
We can talk. I tell you, there's one guy ahead of you who's a client of mine in Australia, and if international restrictions are lifted, he's coming to the show, and it's going to be his book. If he passes, it will become available. Until then, I won't tease you with the particulars.
It's all right. Paul will just fumble into it. That's how he lives.
I'll just take a photocopy. It'll be good enough for me.
Hey, no problem, brother. No problem.
Again, if anybody in the chat has any questions, go ahead and put them down, and we'll do our best to ask. So.
In the meantime, I just want to say thanks to Jason for taking time out for not only sitting with Nico, but coming on with all of us afterwards. It was not the most planned in advance thing, brother, and I appreciate you.
Hey, man, I'm flattered you asked. I'm always happy to talk about the show and talk about the stuff I love. And
people need to hear it.
I can go on and on and on. I mean, I can. The show's special, man. It really is.
It's also
a special show.
Ask anybody in here. Ask anybody who's ever talked to me when a convention comes up. It's all I talk about.
Yep.
It's a good vibe in that room, man. If you're a comic collector, you walk in and it's like Valhalla. The freaking horns are going off, man. It's just like I'm home.
Especially that VIP entrance, like that 9 a.m. shit. Like, oh man.
Man, dude, and we roll out. We roll out 75 feet. I said it earlier, 75 feet of red carpet. We put a photo backdrop up. So you take a photo with the red velvet ropes to remind yourself. And but getting in early is key, man. If you want to, getting in early is key. And once we get the, I'm in talks with the venue. I talked to the venue yesterday. They're keeping me posted day to day, and they're gonna have a plan in place for sanitation and cleanliness, and they're up in their game too. It's a government-run facility, so there won't be any games played. It won't be half-assed in any way.
Huge.
It's a 20,000 square foot. It's an ice skating arena, but they take the ice out. They take the rink walls out. They take everything out, and it literally is a 20,000 square foot rectangle.
Wow.
The ceilings are enormous, so you're not breathing recirculated air. It's like a 200-foot ceiling. It's nice, man. It's a 20,000 square foot venue, plenty of room. I make the aisles wide. I make the spaces big. You'll see, it's a good vibe, man.
Wide aisles are key, man. I've been in cons where they've got like 6 or 8 feet aisles, and you can't get anywhere. I was at one with my brother, and nobody could move. You get one group one way, one the other, and if somebody has a stroller, it's done. You need like 12-foot aisles.
And then you get the guy with the backpack that wants to turn around and look at everything while he's smashing. Yeah. Right.
No, it's key. It's huge. You mentioned you got extra. You mentioned you got extra tables in this year, right?
We were able to put some extra tables in. Yeah, last year we had 100 vendors, including the artist.
So who's your most exciting ad for you? New person in.
It would probably be twofold. I'm excited about Absolute Comics and Statues. Alex Needleman runs a nice operation, and he's the kind of guy that's going to come up with 4 AF-15s and 5 copies of FF1 on the wall. If you want a Hulk 181, he's probably got 6 of them. That's the kind of stuff he brings. So I'm super excited about that element, that level of excellence coming to the show. And on the flip side of that is Zap Comics. You guys are probably familiar with Zap out of New Jersey.
Yeah, I've heard all great things about Zap.
Zap comes with a price point. Great books, great price point. You won't see an AF-15 on this wall, but you'll see a New Mutants 87 for $100. That's near mint, or New Mutants 98 for $175 or something. They got great deals. So I'm excited that there's a lot of new vendors. And the cool thing about that is, you guys, Ben, you touched on it. I haven't been down to the shops by your way, but how cool is it to not have to dig through the same stuff? So for the people up here to get to dig, they're sick of the same shops. Now I have a couple local comic stores up that's set up, no question, but it's like fresh stock, and as a comic collector to get to dig through somebody else's shit, that's pretty cool.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like Larry's Comics, great guy, runs a great business. But I've seen Larry's shit a million times. You know what I mean? I'm not going to pay $10 to dig through Larry's shit. I'm not going to do it. But Alex has good stuff.
I love finding those tables that have the weird stuff, the stuff that you never see, not the super expensive stuff. I'm spacing on the name, but I remember I went to a shop a couple weeks back and I was going through stuff, and there's like the Rat Fink comics, and stuff like that, stuff like really weird stuff that you just don't see anywhere else.
You'll see that at the show. There's actually 2 people that specialize in eclectic stuff like that. One gentleman's name is Bob Stevenson, and his company is Bob's Comics and Zines. He specializes in underground and fanzines and just a lot of odds. Yeah, just a lot of cool stuff, man. And then Mike Carbonaro from Big Apple. Cause you never know what Carbo's gonna bring, man. Ben, am I right?
I told this story the other night. The first time I met Carbo was fucking Boston 2012. I walk up, he's in a fucking neon suit or some shit. Hey, you want to buy a book? I'm like, I don't know, maybe.
He's a legend, man. He's a legend.
Raw
but
detective.
Dude, last year he had
27 detectives in his case.
Last year he brought original Frank Frazetta pages. What is that?
And then when you ask, he's
Frazetta
like,
pages.
I don't know, 14. You're like, 14 what? He's like, I don't know. You're like, well, fuck Carbo. What are we doing?
And see, that's the key. That's the fun part about dealing with Carbo. Not only do you never know what you're gonna find, you never know what you're gonna walk away with. Because the fucking guy.
I get that suspense, that LB Cole suspense, the eye cover with the bright red. It's not the first, not the black one, the red one with the eye. At your show last year from Carbo, somehow he was in the fucking parking lot on a phone making a deal with me. Like, I'm at his table, he's in the parking lot. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm leaving money under like the third.
Leave the money. Oh, Carbo's nuts, man.
Such good times.
He called me up the other day. Now,
oh
no.
Oh man, did Nico infect his internet?
Oh no.
That's what happens when we go out on Carbo.
That's no good. He heard you and he sent evil spirits.
Yeah. When Jason will come back, I'm sure. When he does Solo Wookiee, all-time favorite cover. Question from the crowd. You're on mute, brother.
Can't hear you, Brian.
I want to drop this real quick. Make sure everybody like and subscribe if you're enjoying what you're watching. Make sure you guys check out the other shows that are on the channel. We got some great content showing up almost every night on this channel, and more to come. So make sure to like and subscribe and share with your friends. Let them know what we're doing over here, and let us know you like it. So, and of course, Little Giant Comics. So make sure you guys go to littlegiantcomics.com, home of the old school comic show, and that is 100% the way they should advertise it, because that's what it is. It's what it feels like, sounds like, and there's nothing better than that.
I can't even.
Worth
how good
follow him on Instagram. Keep updated. He does a really, really good job of Instagramming.
Yeah,
he does.
Nico's thinking his phone may have died, so he was on there for a long time. So
right. I'll keep the show talk going for a minute before we tail off here. I will say, hands down, I mean, Jesus, I have the craziest stories from both times. And it really is. I mean, I walked in last year. The first thing I did was trade. Well, I traded a big book away, but I came out with some huge PCH books. I walked over to another table. I found a Suspense 10 or 30, whatever the hell the red cover is. I'm like, hey, how much is this? He's like, hold on. I hear Carbo on the other end of the phone. I start yelling. He starts yelling back. I left money in the case and walked away with the book.
Yeah, between you and him, I'm not sure how a conversation actually was had.
It's not a conversation. It's just fucking yeah.
And I talked to you on the phone, and
James,
it's surreal.
His dollar box, Eternal. Yeah, Celeste. Thank you. We figured he was coming back. Dollar box, Eternals, like Bronze Age stuff. I'm like, James. Because I've known him for a little while. He was one of the first dudes I met in Boston after Carbo back then. I'm like, this is optioned. He's like, yeah, Bronze Age. I'm like, turns his back, goes back to sorting his Golden Age 9.4 Mile Highs. I'm like,
yeah, I mean, I remember
all about shit.
I mean, even fairly recent, I remember buying off his site, and it's just a price list. You email him, I want this book. Okay, I'll sell you this book.
And you trust his grading?
There's no pictures. There's nothing. It's just it's a list.
Yep. I love it. Yeah, man. First show. Who's got the thing open? Reverberating. Another fantastic show.
Yeah, Nico, while we're here, we definitely want to say, Nico, good job, man. And this show is fun for Saturday nights, and love this aspect of hanging out. We definitely would maybe talk one of these nights about figuring out a way to, if possible in the future, maybe bringing in some fans to hang out on the after show with us. So maybe we'll talk about that in the future. And we got him back.
Welcome.
Hey, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
All right. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I was out in the cave and my phone died, so and plug it in. So sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're setting up.
You're good.
So what were we talking about, Ben? Do you remember?
Solo Wookiee. We're gonna
about Carbo
ask from the. Oh yeah, Jesus Christ, Carbo.
Bringing crazy stuff.
Let me ask you. We got a question from one of our regulars.
The kind of odd stuff that you'll find there.
What's your favorite #1 cover?
Trying to get this thing.
I don't know if he can hear us yet.
Yeah, I might be on.
Oh, no, wait. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Question from the live chat. What's your all-time favorite #1 cover?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Man, there's so many.
I know.
Wow. For me, it's I want to say ROM 18, but that can't be it. I think the busyness of Exciting 39.
Exciting 39. Let me pull that up while you're talking about it.
Exciting 39, or actually probably Thrilling Comics number 41. Yeah, that one. I remember that one is just, I don't have it here with me. I sold that copy, but you got Mussolini in the bed of swastikas. You got Hitler in there. It's just an amazing Schomburg cover. Ben, you're probably familiar with that one.
I was going to say it's a Schomburg,
yes.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
You got everything going on.
Oh, yeah, that one is insanity.
It's just, if you like the war covers, that's it. And then Exciting number 39 is a really good one. It's got Nazis giving poison candy to kids.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just such a hard book to find.
We touched on that one night. We have a Golden Age show on Sunday.
You see him in the back.
That's fucking
Wow.
Wow, I've never seen that.
Yeah, that's a wild one. But I like those war covers like that, and the good girl art. Some of the girls were represented. Another cover that comes to mind is Dark Mysteries number 19.
You're going for some deeper cuts. I love it.
I was going to say, I have one
the
Dark
Mysteries 19. I had an 8.5 copy of that. I wish I would have kept. Ben, I'm surprised you don't have that book.
I have one Dark Mysteries. It's not the 19.
You recognize it when you see it.
Yeah. No, I know what it is. All that whole run has that classic skeleton.
Look at that thing.
That reminds me of
you
Terrific
got girls
Freak.
in bondage. You got skeletons.
You got the red and yellow and green colors that just pop.
We didn't do just red dress, and we went with red and green dress here.
Yeah, but see, there's so many. I look at covers a lot when Matt DeMacy with Shadow Comics. He and I talk a lot about upcoming covers that he's going to do, as he homages different covers, and we find ourselves just looking at the color schematics and just the everything about the cover.
This was actually a recent Golden Age book that was on the Hot 10 show, CBSI Hot 10 list. Ben always tries to add, Ben Stein, the writer of the Hot 10, always tries to add a Golden Age book. And the book that he added this week, oh, what a gorgeous book this is. Power Comics number 3. I mean, this blew me away because it's an LB Cole cover, but it looks like 6 different people drew this cover. Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, that his use of color is incredible.
Yeah.
So many LB covers, man. The Mask number 1. Nico was telling me he picked up a copy of Mask number 1.
A beautiful copy.
Man. LB Cole's just amazing.
Yeah.
He said he was going to send it to Susan.
Yeah, it's hard. There's so many covers. It's just hard to pick one. I'm just a fan of all of them, man. I mean, if you appreciate comics, then I don't think you can pick just one.
No.
Hard.
Even a top 10 is hard.
Yeah.
Do you still read weekly books?
Oh, I go every Wednesday and pick up my pull from 2 different stores. Yeah.
What are your favorite books that you're reading currently?
Totally Awesome Hulk. I'm probably up to issue 24. I'm way behind on that. Manifest Destiny, I've been reading. Again, probably 10, 11 issues back on that. And then I try to read like some different trades. I just got done 100 Bullets, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah. You talked about being an X-Men fan. Did you read the Powers of X, House of X, and the new stuff that's come out since then?
I have not. I haven't read an X-Men book in probably 3 years. I grew up on the X-Men, and then my interest kind of changed a little bit. I find myself gravitating more towards like crime stuff, some of the independent stuff, like the Joe Hill line. I think is great from DC. The stuff that he's putting out. Scout Comics is putting out some great stuff. Electric Black. So I find myself reading stuff that's kind of away from superheroes now.
It's kind of weird how that happens as we get older.
So I don't read a lot of the superhero stuff anymore.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are that way. I find myself coming back to it in like small chunks. Like I won't read anything superhero or newer superhero stuff for a while, and then I'll jump in on some new series like that Power of X, House of X. That pulled me back in just because everybody was talking about how much it was going to take us back to that old X-Men. Hopefully, the old X-Men's. Great stories from the X-Men, and I'm a big fan of Jason Aaron. Sorry, was it Aaron or Hickman that did that?
I think Hickman did it.
Hickman, sorry, yeah, Hickman. So, it's weird how that works.
I'm going to get back into. I'll never stray too far away from the X-Men. It's just in my blood for sure. But lately, I've just been gravitating more towards, some of the independent stuff.
Nice. Well, anybody got anything else?
I'll go on forever, but Jason and I know that. So I really do want to plug one more time. I want to plug the show. I can't say enough. From somebody who's been. And this isn't it's to promote it because it's like Jason said, it's the love of comics, man. I'm promoting it too because I want other people to. I think other people should get there 5 minutes after me.
You're good.
Oh,
You're
okay.
Good, yeah.
Cool.
Well, I agree with you, Ben. One of the cool things that we get that happened live on the show when we talk about our love of comics is that goosebump feeling that Jason was talking about earlier when he was talking about his love of, those old comics and the Silver Surfer run and this and that. And big shows like this show, or not even big shows, but shows like this where it's bringing it back to the comic fan is so important. And we need to have more like them. So hats off to you, sir.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
All right. Thanks everybody in the chat this week. We appreciate it. And hopefully we can figure out something to maybe get some of you guys to join these after show chit chats in the future. So make sure you guys like and subscribe. Check out all the other channels. There's some great stuff that just recently dropped. I know there's a new 3-comic Monty from Peter and Mike. Make sure you guys go check that out. And we appreciate your guys' help and everything we do. And we are out of here. Adios.